All right, so we will start off with a Q&A session. So tonight I have 2 or 3 questions. Then we'll see. If you got time, then you can write down on the chat. Okay. Okay, let's go to the wait, hold on now. Okay, can y'all see? Okay, Bhante, as we practice Dana, Sila, and Bhavana, we can see things clearer and improve in wisdom. Many people are ignorant and still at biological stage. Their aims are only self-gratifications. When we interact with them, we may lose our patience and have aversion and anger, especially our near ones. 1. How to maintain our patience and reduce the aversion and anger during and after interaction. Number 2, how then slowly develop equanimity and loving kindness towards them despite their ignorance, hence poor life values. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, let's deal with this type of situation. Now, many of us, when we want to deal with our loved ones, it's one of the most difficult things. Sometimes you want to teach them some Dhamma. You may think that it's easier to teach others rather than the loved ones. To tell them they have their own idea. Because they will not see you as somebody who is more knowledgeable or somebody is more spiritual, but they'll see you just whether you are a husband or whether you are a wife, whether you are a son, and so on. They don't see you in that sense. They don't see you in a spiritual manner. They see you as part of the whole family. And especially like in the Chinese, there's always hierarchy. But anyway, let's just deal with these things. Since you asked this question, because this type of things we can slowly in time we can reduce our aversion. But before we able to reduce the aversion, a few things that we have to go through. First, we have to go through a number of things before that aversion can be reduced. Okay. So what can we do? Now we know that, yes, we know that when we practice this Dana, Sila, Bhavana, and many other things, we begin to have more right view, right understanding, wisdom, clear comprehension, and so forth, so on, which is very good for ourselves. Yes. But then we are living in this world. In this world, we have to deal with a lot of people where sometimes when we are in our office, it could be outside in the shopping mall, or it could be in the post office and mall. And nowadays we are at home quite a lot, So we have to deal with people who do not have much of a Dhamma. And they have their own self-interest and their own self-motivation for whatever motivation they have. Now, you say that when you interact with them, you may lose the patience and aversion and anger, especially to the near ones. All right. Now, the few things that I notice over the time that sometimes when we develop Dhamma, when we develop Dhamma, a lot of times we begin to attach even to the wholesome things. We despise the unwholesome things, unwholesome action, which is good in a way, you know. Even if you have some degree of attachment towards it, and it's still okay, I mean, for the wholesome things. But then when it gets too much, and sometimes we really don't realize that it gets too much. When it gets too much, one of the signs is that our conceit arises. Our I am arises. I've talked about it many times, you know, in the past when we talk about upakilesa and many even like during in the concept also we were talking about it. That once the craving is there for anything, even wholesome or unwholesome, then the next thing will arise is this conceit, is this I am. And when the conceit arises, is there's always a superiority conceit or inferiority conceit, or there's an equanimity, there's the same type of conceit, the same level type of conceit. So the nature of our craving, we don't realize that all these things it creeps inside us. So with our Dhamma also the same thing. And some things that all these things the craving can have its tentacle on it. Although it may not be as strong, but sometimes we forget. Sometimes we are not mindful. So we use this wholesome quality to become a judgmental tool, you know, something for us to judge. And when we judge, and because of the conceit is there, then aversion arises. But then also on the other times, the Buddha also asks us to judge. But the judging, when it comes out from the Buddha, that when you see there's morality without morality, then it looks through the eyes of wisdom. When you look through the eyes of wisdom, it's kind of like step back. Then it doesn't have that conceit when we begin to look down on others. So here we have to be careful as we learn the Dhamma. And especially sometimes we thought that we have a lot of this insight and a lot of all this insight knowledge and all these practices, and we have already 20 years, 30 years, and sometimes we may be the leaders of the community, you know, a community or Buddhist community. Then people will look up at us. People will, sometimes there are devotees that may have some problem. You are the person that the devotees want to go to, talk to, and then to discuss things through. And then sometimes you may be also be the one of able to share the Dhamma. You know, then over time, we kind of like forget. We can become forgetful in that sense, and not forget in things, but forget about our mindfulness. We forget about mindfulness. We forget about, we think that we are more, you know, greater than people and so on. Then sort of like at the back of our mind, we look down on others. And especially when we judge on those qualities that we are attached to. So we got to be careful. We got to be careful in this part, because every now and then I do see these devotees, even monks also, or nuns also, you know, become very conceited about their Dhamma, and they use this Dhamma to suppress others, to push down on others. I've seen like in Burma, when you are, you know, you're good in studies and so on, and and they get very attached to their studies and what level they are in and so on. And then the higher the level, and so some the monks, they become very boastful, become very conceited, and they kind of like talk down on you, and then you don't learn about the Dhamma, you do not know Pali, you do not know this. They look down on you, and there are monks like that. I've seen it. Not all, but there are some who are like that. So do the same thing, like in the Buddhist devotees, also the same thing. Over time, I walk around, I go around to places, then I meet with this type of people. We thought that we know more than others. We thought that we know more than this one. Nevertheless, if we are in that situation, all we need to do is we acknowledge ourselves. We acknowledge that we do not have that. We are imperfect. We do not know everything. Even for me, when I give talks or when I practice and so on, I tell myself I do not know everything. Although I know something, but I do not know everything. And every now and then also I begin to discover a lot of things in the practice or even in the Dhamma too. So if we are more not too attached to all this one, and we know that we are all a bit more imperfect in that sense, then we are much more grounded, We are more grounded. We're not so high like floating in our bubble of our conceit. So we are more grounded. And when we are more grounded, that is where we can able to relate with people better. If we always think that we are more better, we are more better in our spirituality and so on, then you cannot connect with others, because you will see yourself always in the higher side. You always will see yourself, you will view yourself in the higher side. And then you will, when you look at others, somebody else is always lower than you. And so if you already have that, and this is not a one-time thing, you repeatedly have gone through again and again and again and again and again, unmindfully over time, and then it becomes part of your character. So if you have this character, I hopefully that all of you can able to shed that character, because all you need to do is just to acknowledge those things. It's not a very strong defilement in that sense. It needs acknowledgement from your own self. When you have that acknowledgement from your own self, then the mind able to settle down, settle to our ground, and then here it will start to, you can relate to people better on their level. But doesn't mean that we fall onto their aversion and so on. Now the second thing, the first thing is that we have to remove our conceit, about, and also our craving about all these wholesome things that we developed. And the second thing is that we must have yoniso manasikara, wise reflection or wise attention. And this part here is more of a wise reflection, a proper reflection, a right reflection. Now, yoniso manasikara also can be used in when we are doing the actual noting. This is also yoniso manasikara, but this is on the level of noting mind. This is not on the level of reflecting mind, on the noting mind. So both of it can also falls under yoniso manasikara. So next time when you use the word yoniso manasikara, you must know actually which one the monk or which one the Buddha is talking, because there's two different part of it. And two different part of it is that one uses some degree of concept, which is on the reflection part, and the next one on the wise attention part is more of using the ultimate reality. So now this one is more using of a reflective part. wise reflection. Now, what can we do with the wise reflection? Now, before we go into the how we can do this wise reflection on this anger and aversion, let me share back with this thing again. Can you all see this one again? Okay. I've got to remove this thing. Can you all see the resentment here? Can Okay. Wait. Okay. Monks, there are 10 grounds for resentment. What 10? Okay. Thinking they acted for my harm, one harbors resentment. Thinking they are acting for my harm, one harbors resentment. Number 3, thinking they will act for my harm, one harbors resentment. Number 4, they acted for my harm of one who is pleasing and agreeable to me, one harbors resentment. Number 5, they are acting for the harm of one who is pleasing and agreeable to me. Number 6, they will act for the harm of one who is pleasing and agreeable to me, one harbors resentment. Number 7, they acted for the benefit of one who is displeasing and disagreeable to me, one harbors resentment. Number 8, they are acting for the benefit of one who is displeasing and agreeable to me. They will act for the benefit of one who is displeasing and agreeable to me. And number 10, one becomes angry without a reason. These are the 10 bases of resentment. Now, these 10 bases of resentment here. So, this is not a one-time thing. You know? We have kept that resentment from the past. They acted for my harm, or he acted for my harm, or she acted for my harm, or they are acting for my harm, which is in the present, and in the future they will act for my harm. Perhaps this, when you read these things, you have to read it like it is not a one-time thing, you know. And because of that, your anger or your resentment inside you, that means perhaps in the past it has been repeatedly for many times, and then it linger on, you know. It linger on, and you kept it in the heart. When you don't see the person, when you don't see the person that you love, or the person that you don't like, you know, or even your near ones, it could be your near ones, it could be your family, but you don't really love the family members. And the moment you look at them, the feelings arises. That emotion arises, the anger arises. When you don't see them, out of sight, you're out of mind. But the moment you see them, then the whole resentment arises. All the resentment arise, and you get very annoyed. If somebody who is pleasing and agreeable to you, and if you look at the person that you don't like, talking to somebody that you love, or you also get very annoyed. Do not know what you may think that he may give them some not the right way of doing things, or illegal or immoral. So you also may get angry. In the past, in the present, or in the future. If those person that you don't like, then somebody do it for their goodness, then for their benefit, then you also get angry. Like your enemy, somebody doing good for your enemy, then you also don't like the person, whether your enemy and also the person. The world is like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What is number 10? One angry without a reason. Here, without a reason, that means without somebody. That means you still get angry. Maybe, for example, like you're walking, and then you kick you happen to kick a stone, then you get very angry. You curse the stone and so on. Here, it falls under without a reason. Although it may not be, not to say without a reason, it's actually is without somebody else, it's without somebody else. But this one is more like inanimate, without somebody else. So we have a lot. We have a lot of number 10 also. We are not to say that we are free from it. So we scrutinize that this person or these people that you kind of like have unpleasant feelings towards them. So this is their ground for your resentment to arise. You harbor your resentment. So what can you do about it? Then the Buddha also gave the next sutta. Because these are the 10 ways of removing resentment. What 10? Thinking. They acted for my harm, but what can be done about it? One removes resentment. They're acting for my harm, but what can be done about it? They will act for my harm, but what can be done about it? They acted for my harm, what can be done about it? They're acting for my harm, but what can be done about it? It's the same, you see. They will act for the, the same number 7, 8, 9. So here, but what can be done about it? And one does not angry without reason, does not become angry. Here, does not angry means that, again, here, it means that it's not connected with somebody. Even you kick a stone, you don't get angry. You don't curse the stone. The weather is so hot, you don't curse the weather. Or cold, you don't curse the weather. So you don't get angry without a reason in that sense. So here, the Buddha, in a sense, that you must have certain degree of wise reflection. What can be done about it now? It connected with whether it comes with the wholesome action or wholesome speech or wholesome mind, not the unwholesome part, Because if you give these words to people without moral, then they will say that, okay, they are acting for my harm. What can be done about it? I will kill them. It can be done about it. If you give it to an immoral person, If you give it to a more moral person, if you give it to a person with virtue, then the subsequent of following action, thoughts, or speech has to come with wise reflection, with a proper reflection. Not comes with an eye for an eye, Not that comes with anger and more anger. Not that. So what can be done about it? So here is that in your situation, you have to wisely reflect. You have to wisely reflect that what is the situation right now? What is the situation right now, and what can you do? What can you are you going to able to overcome your resentment and your anger? What are you going to do about it? So this time, when you have that wise reflection, actually with that wise reflection, you already step back from the anger. You kind of like you pull yourself out from that anger already. You're not like into it. And you kind of like you're stepping out from the anger. And then you begin to look on it more objectively. rather than connect with it emotionally. Uh. So a lot of us that when we deal with anger, especially those without proper mental development, when they want to deal with this type of people and this one, we a lot of times we put our emotion into it. And when we put our emotion into it, we become biased. And we become biased, therefore, we hold on to certain uh, values or certain attachment. And then after that, we our speech will become very rough, very harsh, very loud, or we lie, or all kinds of bad speech, or sometimes on the or our bad actions also, unwholesome actions, all follow through. So therefore, when we able to wisely reflect, we kind of like learn to step back. And then this time, the mind is not affected by the emotion. So when you reflect that, so then that time you will have at least a better idea. How are you going to speak to the person? Or how are you going to act? Or how are you going to respond with a more wholesome state of mind? Okay. Or perhaps that you think that that person is very difficult to change. It's impossible for me to go and change the person. It's so the mind is so the wrong view is so thick, or so stubborn and so difficult. And what can you do for yourself this time? Now, if you encounter the person, what can you do? Then this time is for you to reflect. What can you do? Then you are not so emotionally and not so biased about to him or to her, and towards yourself too. So this time, you when that anger, resentment is not so much, then that time the mind settle down. Perhaps the mind can look more clearly this time, that perhaps maybe I should develop more loving kindness or compassion for them, wishing them to be well, to be happy. If they go through all this unwholesome path, we wish them to be free from all those suffering. Although you tell them, you know that you cannot go through, but on your part, you still can able to wish them. Then that time, the aversion, the resentment, it's disappear. Although it may not last long, but this is at least the beginning part. Then how you can slowly overcome those type of aversion. Then it doesn't linger on too long, and then we are free from those resentment. We can meet with the person, or with the loved ones, or they may stay at home, but then we don't harbor in it with them, with the this one. The next thing also is that we also must learn to accept them as they are. You have without free yourself from conceit, and also attachment from all these things all this wholesomeness that you must have a wise consideration, wise reflection on how you're going to respond to them and also to yourself. And also, you must also learn to accept them as they are. But doesn't mean that you follow them. Accept them as they are doesn't mean that you just, would they do this, you also must do that. No, accept them as they are, that you stay at your place, I stay at my place, and you know how to draw a line. So acceptance means that you are kind of like aware, you are kind of like accept their behavior, their words. And sometimes there are family members, their words are quite strong and quite rough. Every time you listen to it, it's very difficult. Once you're able to learn to accept them as they are, then very much the anger also is not there. Now, it's best that, of course, with this type of people, is that If you can avoid them, then you avoid them. Because as much as what we say, it's, yoniso manasikara and acceptance and so on, and the conceit and so on. If one of the most thing is that if we can, we stay far away from them. We avoid them if we can. A lot of times, if our near ones, our loved ones, it's not easy for us to avoid. But if there are places or people that if you can avoid, it's better to avoid. Then avoid them. It's then only then the anger doesn't arise. Some people says that no, you must go face to face with it. You must go in face to face with it, and you must go in the confront your anger, confront your this one. It's not easy. This is due to the nature of conditioning of our mind. The nature of our conditioning. When we learn about the 24 conditionings, then this is one of the conditioning. Sometimes you got to just avoid the certain situation in order to free yourself from that resentment. If you can, not to say, not in every situation we can do that. Not in every situation. Then with that, then with that only we can able to develop something. Now, the question number 2 is that I already answered you in a sense that the more that you can able to have certain degree of wisdom, then when your mind is not affected, more not biased, and much more stable and equanimity, then that time you can develop the loving kindness, or you can develop more understanding, more mindfulness. Then that time only you can develop. If so happen that there are occasions that you can able to change their lives, perhaps that sometimes also they go through a very rough time and a difficult time, and then sometimes with your wisdom, and you can give them a helping hand, or a word of advice, and they begin to listen to you. Sometimes those things begin to change. If you still harbor a lot of resentment, and when they go into difficulty, and then a lot of times we get sort of back of our mind, we are happy. I mean, they are getting a lot of their unwholesome karma is happening. At the back of our mind, we kind of like laughing. Now, if you do that, then of course there is something wrong with us. So it is good that when they are in that situation, if we can give them a helping hand, if their mind is open enough, hopefully they will learn. But a lot of times, they might not want to learn. They just want to get out of their suffering, but after that, they get angry again, they get all kinds of things again. So people is very difficult to deal with. That's why the Buddha says, you want to meditate, go away, far away from people. Go into the forest, go into this one. Don't deal with people too much. Deal with people. All the problems were not able to soften. They're one thing after another. That you all know. So if you want to really develop equanimity, so our mind has to settle down. Our mind has to calm down with proper reflection, with acceptance, with mindfulness, with not attachment to we think ourselves too high in our spiritual values and so on. Then only our aversion and anger can start to come down. Yeah? All right. This is question 1. Let us take question 2. Question 2. All right. Most of the times, we believe doing good is the path, or desiring bad thoughts and eliminating potential harm or hurt towards others or oneself is the teaching. However, equanimity is the path eventually brings balance and wisdom. Your comments, Bante, on the above matter. All right. Now, you see, by this spiritual path, here let us talk on the very a wider concept, about how our path develops. Usually, most of the time, when I talk about development of the path, and usually it's development on the meditation path, and then from nothing you have, and then you gain all the insight, and then the enlightenment takes place. Normally, I talk about that path, and it's quite clear, those paths. But when you talk about a wider, like everyday life thing, and those part also is a bit more complicated, but nevertheless, it follows actually the development of the meditation. It follows the development of the meditation. You see, when we begin to do a lot of good from the beginning, let's say maybe 20, 30 years ago, maybe since young, when for this one, sometimes if we are young, from young, we don't see much of the changes in our life, because we kind of like brought up from it in that sense, But in the middle of your life, and you change from a bad person, immoral person, into a moral person, into a more straight and more sincere person, then you can see the contrast is there. But if you're brought up from young, after all, you're walking on the right path or wholesome path, you may not see it that much. But for those who are in the middle of their life, they change from a very immoral to moral. Then you'll see that how your mentality can actually able to develop. You see, when we begin to do a lot of good deeds, and usually when we begin to do a lot of good deeds, is one of the major thing is our dana, our generosity. And we begin to do this dana here, dana there, and then we give time to listen to talks and listen to the more right view. And then we begin to also, at the same time, all the unwholesome things we begin to reduce. Maybe sometimes we reduce it quite slowly, but nevertheless, we begin to reduce those things, which is good, because sometimes human beings, the people that I've met also, sometimes they can be very charitable, but their other actions can be still immoral. They still want to lie in their business. They want to cheat others in their business, in that sense. But on the other hand, they can be quite generous because they find that the generosity gives them happiness. But they don't realize that all these unwholesome things that they are done or doing or still doing will give them unhappiness in the future. But nevertheless, they learn. So a number of us may be developing a lot of wholesome good deeds, a lot of dana that we perform, and then we also to have gratitude, listen to the Dhamma, sharing merits, and then then also on the other hand, we also begin to prevent ourselves from doing a lot of harm, from killing, from stealing, from cheating, and so on. We begin to more on a more proper path. Even for some people, like they begin to give up on smoking. The addiction, a certain addiction to wine, certain addiction to beer and intoxicants, they begin to give up on those things too, which is good actually, which is wonderful. So when they do that, they find that they have more joy in their life. They have more joy in their life overall. That is also good. They have more wholesome type of joy in their life. And then, of course, around during this time also, I mean, emotions and our bias and so on are not fully able to remove yet. We still get a lot of attachment. Once we attachment, there's always bias, and our emotion will flow, and our anger or our happiness will flow according to that emotion, according to the feelings, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. So while we are doing good, our mind is still not so stable. We still delight in here and there, although we know that generosity is good, although we know that the sila is good, but we still enjoy a lot of things. So there is a bias also. The mind is still biased here and biased there. Just like a lot of you, when you don't meditate, when you don't develop the mind, there'll still be a lot of bias, although you do a lot of good deeds, although you try to prevent yourself from this one. But when it comes into development of meditation, this is where the deeper aspect of the mind will start to take place. A more deeper sense of mindfulness, a more deeper sense of wisdom, concentration will begin to take root. Now, when it takes root, this is where it starts going to change the further aspect of your life. And this more of towards the internal aspect. Now, here is that when it change, it begins to change your biases, your biasness towards happiness or towards pleasant or unpleasant or sadness. You become much more steadier. Sometimes, for example, I've met with people that before that, let's say, when somebody died, their loved one died, passed away, and then they will cry and cry and cry, very sad, so sad, maybe cry for 1 week. Even their dog died, also they cry for 1 or 2 weeks. Even somebody else died, also they cry. Even though they watch the movies, somebody died, and also they cry. Even though it's just a movie, but they cry also. So, because of the bias of the mind bias into it, and it goes into it, it attached to all these things, and our mind get sadness or get angry in that sense. Then when they begin to meditate over time, when their loved one pass away, now this time their biases is not so much anymore. The mind doesn't tilt to it so much. Yes, they still get sad, but they are not sad until like 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 year, 2 years, and so on. The sadness keep on lingering in their heart because they're missing the person. So it doesn't linger anymore. So you may be like, oh, the person passed away, maybe just a week. Okay, no more. After that, they move on with their life. When they think about the person, the tears doesn't keep on flowing. That means that the mind is much more balanced. Although it is still there, but the balance is getting better. the equanimity is getting better. That means the fluctuation of the mind, it's getting less. Yeah. Then also on the other another example is that connected to something that you are happy and you are very pleasant and you are very happy. In the past, when things are happy, when it's pleasant, you get very attached to it. You get very attached to them, or the people, or the things, or your beautiful things, and so on. You kind of like you will try to find ways to make yourself happy, to make others happy. For example, maybe come the Chinese New Year and so on. You want to celebrate, you want to do a lot of celebration, you want to visit this one, visit that one, because these things give you happiness. Yeah. Or when you watch a movie, when you watch the movie and then you can glued to it, For example, some of you may be watching all this Korean drama. You kind of like glued to it, Those days we cannot get all this download from Netflix or from whatever, You don't. Those days and 20, 30 years ago, you have to wait for the time. Maybe at 6 o'clock, then only all the Cantonese movie, the Cantonese series will start. Then you kind of like wait for it. What's going to happen? Because of the attachment, because it gives you kind of like a joy, excitement there. But when after you meditate now, all these type of movies and those things that bombarding your senses on, then it becomes less. It becomes less like, if I watch finish, I don't watch finish, maybe also doesn't matter. Or you hear something like a nice music and then the music suddenly goes off. It says, okay, no problem. Or when there is a movie that you're watching, you don't, whether you finish the movie, doesn't finish the movie also doesn't matter. You can stop and then, never mind, tomorrow we can continue. Then after that, tomorrow you want to continue, then you watch a bit, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, sian already, then okay, off. You don't have that desire, that full desire that you want to finish the movie or you want to finish that, the impact of the mind want to finish everything, to have that gratification. That means the mind is not so biased towards the attachment and not so biased towards the unhappiness of life, sadness or anger and so on. The mind is more towards the center. Yeah. As you meditate further and further, the mind comes into a more middle path. And that middle path, some of us may think that no entertainment, no this, no that, no song, where got fun in it. But that is another level of happiness altogether, where when you don't meditate, when you don't practice, when you don't develop, you don't see that as a happiness. You only see what the happiness is in front of you only. You do not know, you haven't seen a higher happiness yet. And only when you begin to develop further, then the mind, the equanimity of the mind becomes much more clearer. When you have that equanimity and so on, doesn't mean that you cannot laugh and you cannot do this and cannot do that. You're totally like a topakong, you sit there and then you do not do anything, like a statue. Not that, You can still able to function, and yet you are quite flexible in doing things, but you are not affected with all the happiness, all the pleasantness and all the unpleasantness of life. You can navigate through life much more smooth, much more clearer, much more wiser in that sense. Not so much affected with all kinds of life and this and that. So this is how, when we develop so when we develop, it will begin to bring in balance and wisdom in that sense. So too, when we develop vipassana insight also. You see, when the deep vipassana insights, and also when you develop the samatha practice also. In the beginning of the development of samatha practice, there's some joy and happiness there. As you go into a higher jhana, then it becomes equanimity and concentration. So too, the path also is parallel in the vipassana path. Now, in the beginning path, of course, although you see a lot of pain here and there, but also in a certain part, you also have some degree of pleasantness, joy, and so on. Yeah? But when you go into a deeper insight, further insight, and especially when it comes into the knowledge of equanimity of formation, Sankara Upekanyana, then again it's equanimity also. And then when you further goes into path and fruition, enlightenment, and so on, then it comes with a lot of equanimity. I mean that equanimity, it comes with deep and strong wisdom, penetrative type of wisdom, not just worldly wisdom, but it's a very spiritual, supramundane type of wisdom. So this is our development. So whether you are fast or slow, as long as you keep on moving, then you will reach the end. Maybe this life, next life, future life, what can we do? After all, if those who are slow, then we have to keep going. If those who are fast, then also you keep going. So this is what it means here. So as we develop our development, now our mind becomes much more this one. But don't get attached to even to the equanimity also, or the wisdom, because sometimes we also met once in a while, this one. And then sometimes they thought that they meditate a lot already. They thought that they're holy already, very wise already, Or they thought that they are already like enlightened already. Wait. Somebody turn on the mic already. Really? Somebody turn on the mic already. Okay. All right. So as I said now, you have to be careful with this equanimity also. Although it's deep and it's this one, and also the craving also can attach to it. Now the craving here, you got to be careful, because I've met or I've seen, I heard that people thought that they became enlightened already, although they are not enlightened yet. They thought that, or they thought that they have this jhana or that jhana already, Then after that, they act, they talk with a lot of equanimity, Then they walk as if like they are arahant already, They walk slowly, they don't look at people, they sit down, and then, talking also one kind, very soft, very gentle. And then they don't look here, look there, they are very, very soft, very, very straight, they walk. And then everybody look at them, wow, holy, all this one must be arahant already. I've met with this one before, because they begin to attach to all those things without their realizing, just like the question number 1. This one is even in the deeper aspect of attachment. They're not there yet, then they already think that they are already in the path, They're on the trip, not on the right path. So there are people like that. There are monks or nuns or even devotees like that. Even devotees that they thought that they develop further, then they talk to you, They talk to me, They talk to me. They don't use the word I, They use the word 5 aggregates. Bhante, when this 5 aggregate is meditating, when the noticing of the rising and falling, this 5 aggregate, They don't use the word I. They use the word five aggregate because they thought that, oh, we could go deeper already. We cannot use the word I anymore. Yeah. They are all on the trip. They get attached to all their development and so on. So be careful. The further, even that you go into the deeper aspect of spirituality, don't think that the craving is far away. It's just next to you. And even like, for example, like Anuruddha, Venerable Anuruddha. Venerable Anuruddha, he's the chief in the divine power, in the divine eye, in the divine eye. And also he is also the most skillful one in the four foundation of mindfulness, according to the Buddha. But before he became arahant, not before he get fully enlightened as an arahant, while he was a Nagami, he thought that he spoke to Venerable Sariputta. He spoke to Venerable Sariputta. He says, the Buddha already, I am so great in my divine eye. And I can see the multitudes of heaven and so on and so forth, But how come I still cannot get enlightened yet? I can fully enlighten. Still, I cannot get the arahantship yet. Then the Venerable Sariputta, it is because you get attached to all your divine power, divine eye, to all your spiritual power. It is because you get attached to it. Because of that attachment, you get conceited about it. That's why you cannot attain the highest liberation. Then once he realized it, then he let go of that. This one, then only he can gain a full liberation. Then only Venerable Anuruddha became an arahant. So too, you see, all this wholesome path that we develop. So as much as we develop, whether the question number 1 or number 2, we don't get attached to it. We develop as far as we can, and then every now and then we use our wise consideration, wise reflection, your yoniso manasikara, with more acceptance. We take note of our conceit and so on. We are more grounded, and then your spiritual path has less hindrance, less blocks. Then you can able to go further, deeper. All right, that's it on tonight. We have 2 questions. Okay, that's it. 10 o'clock sharp. We finish. Good. All right. We share merits.